And what's up, everybody? Coming to you from Tiger Stadium as we saw LSU survive to beat a feisty Arkansas team tonight, 34-31. A field goal in the final minute for LSU, and KJ Jefferson, Jayden Daniels really put on a show tonight after a slow start for both sides. Look, you got to give credit to Arkansas and Sam Pittman and that crew after losing to BYU at home like they did last week. It would have been easy to come in here as, 17.5-point underdogs to LSU and quit and not put up a fight. And so kudos to those guys. They played hard. To me, the big question is, we'll talk about it later this week on Locked On SEC, but should Arkansas have let LSU score? Without about a minute to go, we're tied 31-31. Logan Diggs runs the ball down to the Arkansas 3, and Arkansas tackles him. I understand you never want to let somebody score. You never want to give up, points. But the way this thing played out, especially how Arkansas's offense was playing in that second half, in my opinion, you let them score there. Give KJ Jefferson the ball back with a chance to go tie this thing and send it to overtime. Instead, LSU has the ball comfortably in really easy field goal range, and they're able to just kind of run the clock down, set themselves up for the easy field goal with under 10 seconds left, and that was kind of it. A Hail Mary from KJ Jefferson to end the game is intercepted by LSU, but I just think that's one of those big things they're going to be talking about in Arkansas this whole week is, do you give the way your offense is playing, do you lay down, let LSU score there, and give your offense a chance to tie this thing and send it to overtime? Both defenses have a lot of question marks, both LSU's and Arkansas's. Both, again, credit to both KJ Jefferson and Jayden Daniels, making some amazing throws all night long. And interesting for LSU, Malik Neighbors is still Jayden Daniels' go-to guy on third downs, but Brian Thomas is really coming out as a guy that is a really big play answer for LSU as well. Last year, the big thing was Malik Neighbors was able to show up and show out because Kayshon Boutte was grabbing a lot of the double teams. And this year, Malik Neighbors, while he gets a lot of the attention, it's Brian Thomas who is finding himself open and making some big plays. So congrats, LSU. They get the win 34-31, and this run for Arkansas is not going to get any easier. I think they get A&M in Dallas next week. Going to be a tough one. So we'll see what they were able to do. Some other games from today. The big one from today, Alabama looking more like Alabama, at least defensively, as they beat Ole Miss today, 24-10. Jalen Milroe, 17 of 21, 225 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Jase McClellan, he had a nice day, over 100 rushing yards on the day. But to me, the key to this game was Ole Miss being held to just 3 for 14 on third downs and only 300 yards of offense, 301, I think is what they had. But they could not convert the big third downs, and that is where Ole Miss shot themselves in the foot today. And 8 penalties for Ole Miss as well, just a lot of self-inflicted wounds. And let me pull up. I know Lane Kiffin, his quote today was, or at least from the Ole Miss players, this is from Chris Lowe at ESPN. He said, the quote was, "I felt like our whole team felt like this was the year to get them," meaning Alabama. "I just felt like we missed out on so many opportunities." That was actually Jackson Dart's quote. And again, the reason we picked Ole Miss, the reason a lot of people were, I started to get a little scared Saturday morning because so many people were picking Ole Miss to pull off this upset. And the more and more I just kept looking at it going, man, what if Bama does a great job defensively? Especially when Lane calls out Kevin Steele a few days ago saying, "I don't think Kevin Steele's running this defense." Well, doesn't matter who's running the Alabama defense. They look legit, and a monster win for Alabama. They're back in the driver's seat here. The game against A&M and the game against LSU will both loom large. The SEC West, at least right now, looking like, kind of between Alabama, LSU, and A&M. So those will be some big games when those 3 teams all play each other in the coming weeks. Ole Miss kind of now on the outside looking in. I kept saying, look, if Ole Miss was able to pull this win off, they host LSU next week. If Ole Miss could have held serve and beat LSU in Oxford, man, we're talking about Atlanta or Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss in the driver's seat to head to Atlanta, somewhere the Rebs have never been. And, that goes out the window now with the loss to Alabama. But kudos to Alabama. Jalen Milroe was not perfect, but he made some plays with his legs, with his arm, took a shot on the touchdown pass late, and he battled. And kudos to him. He's the guy. Alabama rallied around him offensively. And, again, he won't be Bryce Young. He won't be perfect, but he gives them a chance to win. Obviously, a better chance than any of those other guys. Some other games from today. Tennessee, they bounced back. They trounced UTSA 45-14. Joe Milton, 200 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Dylan Sampson, 139 rushing yards and 2 scores. Jabari Small, Jalen Wright, they get all the attention, but it was Dylan Sampson today who was the putting up the most yards, and over 500 yards of offense for the Vols, 4 sacks for the Vol defense. That was a big one as well. So, look, the UTSA was outmatched, but a nice job by Tennessee to bounce back after the loss in the Swamp a week ago. And let's see what Tennessee looks like moving forward. But maybe some confidence brewing back for Joe Milton. Not perfect, but if Tennessee's going to be effective this year or win a lot of games, they got to do so with an effective run game. And today the run game was good. Another one today, early this morning, really fun game to watch. Texas A&M and Auburn. The Aggies beat Auburn 27-10. I say fun if you like defense. I mean, there was a lot of hits early in this one. It was a 6-3 game at halftime. I felt like Auburn got outplayed through much of that first half, and they were really lucky to only be down 3 at the half. They kept getting lucky breaks here, lucky breaks there. And Connor Wegman, the all-everything quarterback at A&M, gets hurt right before halftime, limps off the field, and they had to go to the LSU, former LSU quarterback Max Johnson. He comes in, throws 2 touchdown passes in the second half, and I just thought A&M, what they were able to do offensively and defensively, A&M looks like a team that can really disrupt the apple cart, and there's a lot of talent on that team. Shout out to Amari Daniels. He broke off that 79-yard run late. I think Auburn cut it to 20-10, so they still kind of had a chance. But Amari Daniels breaks off that long run. They score, and they don't look back. But big roses to the Aggie defense today. 7 sacks. They got after Peyton Thorne. Auburn finally kind of got something moving. They put Robbie Ashford in there, but I kept saying this all week. I thought that this was going to be a blowout win for A&M just because I said Auburn's not there yet. I like Hugh Freeze. I like Philip Montgomery. I think the future looks bright. They're recruiting their butts off, but they don't have the horses yet. And Peyton Thorne just does not look great. I mean, it starts making me wonder, what Hugh saw in him that he liked so much and why they didn't maybe try to get somebody else out of the transfer portal that maybe could execute their offense a little bit better. But it's not so much on Peyton Thorne. I don't want to put too much blame on him. That offensive line has not been good for Auburn. And they got big holes there that they have to fix and move forward. And if I'm Hugh Freeze, I go to practice on Monday and say open competition on the offensive line. Nobody has a spot locked in, and may the best man win, and we'll retool this thing. But big questions for Auburn, and we know this schedule coming up is as tough as can be, and Hugh Freeze said as much on Monday. So we'll see what Auburn's able to do here. But a big win for A&M again, that they got it done defensively. But some big questions on Connor Wegman. How long will he be out? But at least they feel good about Max Johnson. They feel like he can win you some games. And with that receiving core that A&M has, I think Max Johnson can fill in admirably and do the job. Another game from earlier today, Kentucky, with a 45-28 win at Vandy. Now, the score looks impressive, but if you watch this game, it was just sloppy. It was sloppy on both sides. Devin Leary throws for 200 yards, but had 1 touchdown, 2 picks. But it was on the other side, Vandy, A.J. Swan, with 3 interceptions, 2 pick sixes by Maxwell Hairston. And, that was the story of the day. It was Kentucky's defense making some plays, and particularly those 2 pick sixes. Ray Davis, obviously his return back to Nashville, the former Vandy running back. He had 78 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. So nice homecoming for him. And it was good to see Kentucky kind of get their receivers going. 100-yard receiving day from Berrien Brown. Dane Key had a touchdown. So, look, Kentucky, it's not been the prettiest, but I think they get Florida up next. And hey, look, they're undefeated. Let's see what Kentucky can do. They've had Florida's number a couple times in recent years after that was such a one-sided matchup for so many years. So Kentucky with a chance. They did what they needed to do against Vandy. Let's see what they do moving forward. But yeah, real quick, guys, we'll get back to recapping some of the action today in just a second here on Locked On SEC. First, I want to remind you guys this episode is brought to you by our friends over at the Gametime app. Look, Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. If you're buying tickets to a game, like coming to Tiger Stadium here to see an LSU Arkansas type game, you can see the view of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect. You know what the view is going to look like. You know where your seats are. And you can buy your tickets in seconds with just 2 taps of your phone. Gametime, they got deals right up to the start of your event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Gametime app. Go download the Gametime app, create an account, use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Gametime app. Go check them out. All right, continue on here, guys. Just kind of recapping some of the action today, and we got some games that just went final here in the last 30 minutes, an hour or so. Georgia, they beat up on UAB 49-21, but give credit to Trent Dilfer's crew, man. They came in, and I thought they gave Georgia a little bit of a fight. I mean, a respectable, just in terms of like the talent disparity between Georgia and UAB. It was interesting to see UAB scoring some points and moving the football. Jacob Zeno, we talked about him earlier this week, said he can move the football. He can throw for a lot of yards. He threw for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns with a pick against Georgia. And offensively, I thought this was one of Carson Beck's better games, obviously. 22 for 32, 337 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. We got to see Brock Vandergriff and Gunnar Stockton in there later. Dejon Edwards, again, he was the hero last week, 66 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns for him this week. And welcome back Brock Bowers. We know he's been not the healthiest, and he got going tonight. 9 catches, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. Welcome back Brock Bowers. He was a welcome, welcome big night for him, we should say, for the Georgia Bulldogs. But a couple of fumbles for Georgia along the way tonight. But defensively, again, they made some plays when they needed to. I think it was Brinson had a sack on the night, and it was Tyke Smith with the interception. But Georgia Bulldogs, it's not perfect. That's going to be the problem with Georgia all year is everybody's expecting them to be perfect, and it's just not. It's not going to be. They're still dominant. They're still winning. And that's the most important thing is just keep winning games if you're Georgia. But everybody's expecting them to win every game 52-0 against inferior opponents, and this is just who Georgia is. They're winning. It's not blowout like dominant blowout fashion, like I said, blanking teams. They're giving up some points this year, but again, mission accomplished. And again, tip your cap to Trent Dilfer's crew coming in there and giving Georgia some problems at least defensively. Throw for 250 yards and doing that. All right, the other one, Mizzou, big win in St. Louis, 34-27 over Memphis. Brady Cook, we heard he was banged up. I think hurt the knee late in the Kansas State game a week ago, and he goes 18 for 25 tonight, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cody Schrader, awesome night for him, over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. Nathaniel Pete had 65 yards and a touchdown. Luther Burden, the St. Louis kid, back in St. Louis, 10 catches tonight, 177 yards. I saw he was cramping up at one point. He was just, the kid was doing everything he could for them. So kudos to him. Chris Abrams drained with 7 solo tackles on the night, had a pass deflection, and nice win for Mizzou over a previously undefeated Memphis team to win 34-27. So Mizzou, who knew that Eli Drinkwitz's crew would be undefeated 4 weeks into the season? Now they go to Vandy this coming week. You expect they'll win that one. And then a monster game with LSU coming to Como in 2 weeks. That is a big one. And, man, if Mizzou is 5-0, that game is going to be that's going to be a big one. That house is going to be packed. Environment's going to be rocking. So congrats to Eli Drinkwitz. And the last game we didn't touch on, just went final a little while ago. South Carolina beating Mississippi State 37-30. This one was defense optional. A little bit of vintage Will Rogers, back to the Will Rogers we know. But how about Spencer Rattler? I think he was like 16 for 16 towards the end of the third quarter, like almost into the fourth quarter. He was perfect on the night. Finishes 18 for 20 for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns, no picks. Spencer Rattler, incredible and easy to be that way when you got a receiver as good as Xavier Leggett. He's been one of the leaders in the SEC in receiving yards all year, and he had 5 catches, 189 yards, and 2 touchdowns tonight. Trey Knox had a touchdown, and a little bit of a ground game for South Carolina. We talked about they've been suffering without a run game. Mario Anderson with 88 rushing yards and a score. So maybe South Carolina's found a little bit of a running game. DeCarrion Joyner, he had 10 rushes for 24 yards, but Mario Anderson, good night for him. Spencer Rattler also had 43 rushing yards as well, but a much-needed win for South Carolina. We talked about it. We said they cannot lose a third game this quickly, this early on the season with so many tough opponents still to come. So kudos to Shane Beamer and crew. They find a way to get it done. Just going to be a tough year for Zach Arnett. I said Mississippi State's got a ton of talent on that roster, but they just can't seem to put it all together. Today, like I said, because they were trailing, at times they had to keep throwing the football. So Will Rogers ends up with 487 passing yards of the night, not much rushing yards. Jaquavius Marks did find the end zone, but Tulu Griffin, my gosh, in a losing effort, 7 catches, 256 yards, and a touchdown. Unbelievable night for Tulu Griffin. So, man, it just stinks that it's in a losing effort, but 2 incredible performances tonight from Tulu Griffin and Xavier Leggett, 2 of the best wide receivers in the SEC. And again, Shane Beamer's crew gets it done. They get the win 37-30 in Columbia. And now Zach Arnett's crew, they got to figure out go back to the drawing board. How do we find a win? I mean, that's the toughest part for Mississippi State. So that's all your action here for SEC Week 4. Tune in on Monday here on Locked On SEC. We'll be giving you our winners and losers of the weekend and recapping it all right here on Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.